Sorry, I'm like looking back here to make sure I don't see any snakes because I saw a snake earlier today and it kind of freaked me out. And it was like up my house. Hey friends, I wanted to give you 5 tips on growing a ton of passion fruit. They're right here behind me. I am growing the passion fruit vines up my shed and I'll give you a closer look in just a bit, but these are growing so good. And the flowers, I don't know if you can see, can you see this flower? I'll do a close-up later, but these are so beautiful. And I think these are the purple passion fruit and they taste really good. They're a bit smaller. Well, not a bit smaller. They're like the ones that you buy at the grocery store. So they're gonna get a little bit bigger than this. But here are 5 tips of how to grow a ton of passion fruit, or at least the things I do to grow all these fruits. So tip number 1 is you need to have a good plan. Like you need a trellis, or in my case, I have them grow up the shed. I also have the vine growing up the fence, and you do need to be careful about where you are having the vine growing. So let's say you have it growing up the shed like I have right here. You need to make sure that you are training the vine because it will grow like crazy. It will take over your entire shed, which I don't mind, but I don't want it growing up my house. And so I have to keep a closer look on the vine, making sure that I train it or I trim it so it doesn't grow up my house. But it can grow up the shed all at once. I'm perfectly fine with that. So that's number 1. Have a plan for where you want it to grow. Now, I also have it growing up the fence and it's fine. It's okay. The issue is the trees around the fence sometimes are being taken over by the passion fruit vine, because this vine grow like crazy and it will literally take over the trees and the other plants that you have growing around it. So just keep that in mind. I have a neighbor that cotton and his trees are growing pretty close to the fence. So one of the vines snuck out and it literally took over his tree, and I had to cut the vine to make sure that it doesn't grow up his tree anymore, because the tree kind of is also near his, what are they called, solar panels, and I did not want my passion fruit vines growing by the solar panels. It doesn't seem okay. So be careful, all right? Because you might think that you will get a handle of this vine, but okay. Tip number 2, you need pollinators. So do you have a lot of bees and butterflies in your garden? If so, then you probably won't have any issues with the flowers. Oh, look at these flowers, with the flowers being pollinated. But if you do have some issues with that, if you don't see many bees or butterflies around, you can try to pollinate the flowers by yourself. I'll show that towards the end of this video of how I pollinate the flowers. It might work for you. I guess it depends on what type of passion fruit vine you're growing, but this is what I see my bees do, and yeah, I mean, it's worth a try. If you don't see your flowers being pollinated, you can give it a try and maybe it will work for you. But you could also plant some more flowers around in your garden so that you are attracting pollinators. All right, tip number 3, temperatures. Oh, it's hot right now. But okay, so the temperature. So passion fruit vines, they like 65 degrees Fahrenheit to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, which is what's going on right now here in Florida. I live in the Clearwater area, and right now it's like 80 something. So, and the vines are doing so good, and I'm seeing a ton of flowers and a ton of fruit. So it must be because they love this weather. It did get pretty cold here. It was about, I think, 35 degrees Fahrenheit at one point, and passion fruit don't like that. So usually around the springtime and then in the summer, I will pretty much be able to harvest this fruit. I wait until they're like purple and they fall to the ground, and I pick them off the ground. Rarely do I pick them off the vine. So when they're ready for harvest, they will fall to the ground. Oh my gosh, it's getting too sunny right now and I don't like it. Okay, tip number 4. Passion fruit vines are sensitive to dry soil. So you need to make sure that you are watering the vine enough. So I'm really bad at this, but I kind of forget to water all of my plants. I probably water them every like 3 days or so, sometimes, you know, once a week. In the summer, I feel like there's a lot of rain here in Florida, so I don't have to water any of my plants much, but now I like try to be better about it. And I have watered it maybe like 2 days ago. Sorry, I'm like looking back here to make sure I don't see any snakes, because I saw a snake earlier today and it kind of freaked me out. And it was like up my house. It wasn't on the ground. It was a black snake, so I think it's a friend. So I'm like trying to make sure that there are no snakes in this vine. There might be. You don't know. Florida things. Okay, so sensitive to dry soil. Make sure that the soil is moist. It's okay to, if it's dry every once in a while and you forget, I wouldn't worry about it too much. So just water it when you remember. All right, pests and diseases. That's my 5th tip is to, keep an eye on your leaves. So if you see like here, there's a lot of like dry leaves or dead leaves. You want to pick those out. I try to go through my vine every once in a while and take all these leaves and just like throw them out. But yeah, you don't want a lot of leaves stuck in between, because then you might attract pests and diseases and your fruit might get sick and all that stuff. So try to pick off any, like here, see this one just fell right off. Pick them off, keep your vines nice and clean. And sometimes I do see some caterpillars on there, or a lot of caterpillars, munching on the leaves. So I like pick those off and just give them to the ducks. I just throw them on the ground and I don't know what happens. So maybe the birds eat them, I don't know, but I try to pick off as many as I can. A few will be left, but the vine grows like crazy, so I don't worry too much about the caterpillars. But yeah, so number 5, pests and diseases. So now I'm going to give you a closer look of the fruit and the flowers, how you can kind of pollinate the flowers yourself if you don't have a lot of pollinators. So this is how I pollinate the flower. So you take, this is if you don't have, as a last resort. So pick off the anther. This is the anther. It has all the pollen on it, a ton of pollen. And you want to rub this pollen on a different flower. So I'm going to go over here. And so this is the stigma right here. So you want to rub the pollen on, just rub it on the stigmas over here.